Hey guys, Curtis with Wander with the Workmans, and we are back in Tucson, Arizona today. I got some channel updates for you, and I want to talk about what happens when you're in the right place at the wrong time. So hey guys, we are on our redo trip, I guess. We are back in Tucson, Arizona, and for a couple of different reasons, but this is the second time that we have returned to a campsite. The first time was on our way back. When we left you last time, we were at Percha Dam State Park near Caballo Lake in New Mexico. And since then, we've traveled back here to Tucson. In that process, we stopped at Rockhound State Park in New Mexico. Now, we've already done a video about Rockhound, and I gotta tell you, it's still a great park, but there's a huge difference. Last time we were there, we had to use the group area because that park is incredibly busy. This time we got lucky. We got an actual spot, and what went from a wonderful park using the group area, it became a stupendous park when you have your own site. So it offers you picnic tables and fire rings and that kind of thing when you get into an actual spot rather than using the group area. So it just adds that little bit extra to your experience. Definitely check out Rockhound State Park. Again, I'll leave a description for our first video or a link in the description below. Order of operations, I'll get there someday, but you'll be able to access that video to check it out. But I definitely recommend it, not only for its amenities and all of that kind of thing, but also because the staff there is friendly, and they have this thing called the Friends of Rockhound Club, which is local people who really appreciate that park and volunteer their time to make it look good, to make it function, to raise funds, to help advance it and that kind of thing. And so it's just a wonderful park with a wonderful bit of infrastructure behind it. Now, the reason we're back here in Tucson is a couple of reasons. First of all, we attended the Tucson Book Festival, which is a massive book fair and street fair that takes place at the University of Arizona on the first Saturday and Sunday of March every year. Again, I'll link their website down below so you can check it out, but it is incredible. Hundreds of book vendors, independent authors, nonfiction authors. There's a lecture series that is just massive. So be sure to check it out. Definitely something to take advantage of if you're in the Tucson area at the start of March. The other reason that we came here to Tucson, Arizona is because, as many of you know, package delivery is kind of an issue when you're on the road and don't have a strictly permanent address. The usual way is to find a campground that will accept package delivery while you're camping there and have your packages sent there. We're lucky enough that my brother lives in Tucson, and so when we're in the Southwest, we're able to have our packages sent here, and he's kind enough to accept those for us. And so we had to run back here because coming up in April is my birthday, so I got an early birthday present of sorts. If you notice, I'm probably in better focus than I have been in the past, and that's because we got a new camera for our channel. The other thing we got, here we go, is we did pick up a gimbal, so the motions are going to be a little less shaky. We're going to be able to get some fun shots and that kind of thing. So camera upgrade for the channel. Happy birthday to me, I guess. Couple of things about Tucson. Didn't really touch on it while we were here, other than to say this was the best smelling campground that we've stayed at, because we're mooch docking in my brother's office complex. And it's still the best smelling campground in the world because we've got a bakery right over there, and right now it smells like cinnamon rolls, fresh baked cinnamon rolls. So while the views aren't pretty and the barbed wire isn't the most attractive thing in the world, totally makes up for it. But a couple of things to add to the Tucson experience if you are lucky enough to make it into Tucson. First of all, as far as major cities go, it is a wonderful major city. It's easy to navigate the traffic, still big city traffic, but it is really a neat city. It offers all the major amenities, multiple Costco's, multiple Walmarts, tons of Targets, even a super Target, 3 different malls, all of those kind of things. But a couple of things I wanted to highlight. We discovered a place called the Cobra Arcade Bar. Now, if you're of my generation, you remember Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac-Man, Rampage, Q*bert, those kinds of video games. And this bar in the downtown area of Tucson specializes in refurbishing and allowing you to play those old style arcade games. Had a ton of fun last night checking those out. So definitely, if you get here, check out the Cobra Arcade Bar if you remember some of those arcade classics. And I also wanted to highlight something about Tucson that is very particular to Tucson. I enjoyed it when I lived here. In fact, actually became addicted to these things when I lived here. And this is kind of giving out the keys to the castle, as it were, about Tucson. And that is E.G.'s. Now, E.G.'s is a restaurant. It's a burger joint. You can get, just your average burger, fries, sandwiches, that kind of thing. But if you talk to a native Tucsonan, they're going to ask you if you want an E.G. And that's kind of code, because what an E.G. is, or the E.G. is a frozen fruit drink. And it's like a slush puppy / gelato kind of a feel to it. It's really good, and it's very particular to Tucson. Now, you can order them online if you give them 4 days notice, and they'll ship them anywhere in the country on dry ice. But if you're in Tucson, definitely check out the E.G. They have some standard flavors: lemon, grape, strawberry, but they also do their flavor of the fortnight, or their featured flavor is what they actually call it. But every 2 weeks they change to a featured flavor. And so right now, here in March, at the start of March, it is Lucky Lime. When we were here last time, it was Dragon Fruit. And during the Tucson Rodeo, they offer Rodeo Root Beer, which has got to be my absolute favorite flavor of E.G. Unfortunately, that comes around in like October, so missed it this time, but we will get here eventually. Now, in our travels from Percha Dam back here to Tucson, we did have a chance to stay at Aguirre Springs, which is a national forest campground just outside of Las Cruces, New Mexico. Now, for those of you who have an interagency pass or America the Beautiful, we paid $7 a night, but it is half price with any one of those passes. Some things to keep in mind about this campground right off the bat. First of all, it is very, very tight. Now, normally we talk about tight campsites, meaning you're really close to your neighbor, but in this case, it's tight in every direction. The campsites themselves are very tight. The road is tight. You are close to your neighbors. In fact, there is a length restriction. The sign says 23 feet, and I think they're measuring in living space, because we are 23 feet in living space with a 2-foot hitch and a long box extended cab pickup. Now, we were on the outer edge of being able to navigate the winding road and get our rig into one of the few spaces that would accept something our size. Anything smaller than that, this is an absolutely stunning campground. It is true boondocking, however, so you are packing in everything and you are packing everything out. There is a water fill station at the base of the mountain, so you don't have to go all the way with full water tanks, but there's no place to dump at this campsite. You have to go into Las Cruces, and there's a couple locations there where you can dump. But at this campsite, it is 100% true boondocking, but it is well worth it. The mountain is just stunning with its peaks and its cliffs. The vegetation straddles that area from mountain and high desert, so you're starting to get some taller trees and that kind of thing. Each and every one of the campsites comes with a picnic pavilion, and usually they're kind of in you might call it like a step down or sunken kind of area. There's fire pits there, and every one of them are off of the campsite a little bit and in their own little secluded area. So it's really, really neat. But again, watch your length. And I'll admit right here, right now, this is pretty much it for the campground review part, and there's a reason I rushed through the campground review, and that is we did not get to stay at Aguirre Springs for very long. And that brings me to the main point of this video: what to do when you are in the right place at the wrong time. What happened to us was we pulled in on a relatively nice day, mid-60s, just a light breeze, beautiful blue skies, vistas all over the place. Thought this was wonderful. We survived the trip up the road, and once we got settled in, we thought, man, this is a heck of a find. then the clouds started rolling in and the wind started picking up. By the time we were ready to go to bed, it was completely overcast and the winds were blowing at about 30 miles sustained. It was quite the adventure, and gusts were getting up to 45 miles per hour. We were rocking and rolling. And so we decided to hunker down. Obviously, we didn't want to get out of there in the nighttime, so we turned on the heater, opened up the cabinet doors to keep pipes from breaking, that kind of thing, and went to bed. In the middle of the night, the wind really picked up, and by the time we woke up the next morning, there were 2 to 3 inches of snow on the ground. At that point, we were kind of like, man, should we maybe pull out of this campground? It's absolutely gorgeous. It's really kind of the style of camping we truly enjoy. It's kind of that mountainside camping, so it was tough to give it up for those reasons, but we're like, man, this weather, right? So we decided, well, we'd paid for 3 days and it could get better. But the wind continued to blow, and in the middle of the night, we got hit with winds. And I don't just mean like bad winds. We're talking like gale force winds at this point. At one point, we took a gust of somewhere between 60 and 70 miles per hour. It was bad, and what it did was it ripped the shroud completely off of our air conditioning unit. The cover was, well, not completely. It was in pieces, and most of it was gone. It was on the ground. So luckily on the third day, temperatures kind of warmed up a little bit. I was able to go do the embarrassed walk around to the camp, picking up pieces of my RV. But the winds didn't completely die down, and so when it was time to check out on the third day, we're like, we gotta go. You know, there's a lot to experience here. The hiking trails looked really neat. Again, the views were wonderful. It just wasn't working out for us weather-wise because we were actually taking damage to the rig. And so we ended up heading on down the road, and that's how we ended up back at Rockhound State Park. But this brought up a few lessons that, for the most part, were reconfirmed in our mind. We kind of had them out there, like, this is a thing, we semi-understand it. But truly experiencing it really reinforced these lessons, and wanted to go over some of these lessons with you. First of all, know your seasons. When we pulled in, it was very spring. This was very much spring, but we're also on the shoulder, that winter into spring area, and the weather can change like that. And so know whether you're firmly in a season or if you're on a shoulder of a season. Now, the transition probably from spring to summer is not as drastic as, say, fall to winter or winter to spring, but still, there are transitions, and when the weather starts to change like that, it can change on a dime. So be aware of where you actually are in the season. I think what we ended up doing was maybe fooling ourselves a little bit, because we're like, oh, it's beautiful, it's the Southwest, everything like that. No, it can still have spring. Just like any other part of the country, it can have a weather change real quickly. The other thing that we realized is to truly understand how high up you are. Understand elevation. We had gone from about 4,000 to 4,400 feet in the places we had been staying, like Perch Dam and that type of thing, all the way up to 5,500 feet. In fact, you have to go over the pass there at Las Cruces to get to this campground, which peaks at 5,700 feet. So we're about 1,000 feet higher than we had been experiencing throughout the winter. And that elevation change, again, kind of out there, like, it's a thing, but then you experience it, and it really becomes a thing. It becomes very prescient in your world. And so understand the elevation that you're at as well. Now, we had never experienced an issue where environmentally we considered moving out of a campsite early. Now, we've had one experience in our past where, because of human factors, we were like, this campground isn't really that comfortable, we're going to go ahead and call it early and move on. And you hear a lot about that. If you're not comfortable, move on. Well, the environment can do that to you as well. And this was definitely one of those cases where we probably would have pulled out a day earlier than we had planned and just sacrifice the campground fee, because it's a pay poll, there's no one to get a refund from, and it's a national park, help them out. It doesn't hurt. Give back a little, right? But the road being covered with snow made it so that we weren't comfortable coming out of that windy mountain road in the snow. So we stuck it out for the 3 days we had paid, but definitely be willing to just say, you know what, this isn't the right time for this. This may be the most beautiful campground, and in this case, it was the most beautiful campground. It just wasn't the right time, and we needed to get off the mountain for our safety and the safety of our vehicle. And so be willing to jump out of a campsite if it's not comfortable because of human factors, but also be aware that the environmental factors can cause it to be slightly uncomfortable as well, and you've got to be ready to just move for your own safety and your own comfort. Now, the last thing that this really kind of set in our mind for us was breaking the air conditioning cover reminded us that it's fixable. Now, nobody wants to take that $150 out of their repair fund or their emergency fund, but the truth of the matter is, it's fixable. It's not the world's worst thing, and we got out of there without any other major damages. We got out of there safely, and so $150 compared to what it could cost us in medical bills and lives or major damage like pipes breaking, was definitely well worth the lesson. In terms of repairs, we can chalk this up to being on our 2019 repair and review video, but I'm not really going to do much of a video on it because honestly, if you have a screwdriver, this repair is very easy. Take off the old one, get a new one, put the screws back in. There's 12 screws, they're Phillips head, you're done. So no special tools, no special techniques, just take off the old and slap on the new. But I hope some of these lessons, knowing where you're at when you're there, and being willing to call an audible and say this just isn't going to work for us, are good tips for you. They were definitely lessons that we needed to relearn or have them set firmer in our mind, and like I said, we got out of it just fine. In terms of the campground review, we will be going back to Aguirre Springs, most definitely, and at that point we will do a full-on review of Aguirre Springs, because even just experiencing it in bad weather for just a couple of days, it is definitely worth it, and we want to bring you a full review of that campsite as well. In the meantime, you guys, if you like what we're doing, make sure to do all of those YouTube-y things. Subscribe, hit the bell notification, ring the bell, as they say, so you get notified when we put out a new video. You can check us out on Instagram if you want to see some of our more spontaneous adventures. We are Wander with the Workmans as well. In the meantime, you guys, we'll catch you down the road.